Awesome. So, by way of intro, if you those who don't know me, my name is Sean Adams. I'm the VP of Revenue here at Iorad. Hard to believe I've been here 4 years now this July, which some days feels like dog years. Other days it feels like it's been a week. Just the such is life in a startup. But I oversee our customer facing team. So those on our partnerships team, our direct sales function, and Ashley's team on the customer success side. And Ashley, I'll kick it over to you to do an intro.
Thanks, Sean. Hello, everyone. For those of you who I haven't met yet, but hopefully will soon, I'm Ashley Berg. I'm the customer success manager here at IRAD. Unlike Sean, I have been here almost a year, which also feels like dog years and also a week in all of the good ways. And I'm super excited to be on this webinar with Sean, especially because I spend, as you probably imagine, most of my time talking to all of our customers, showing them how to use the product, ways to make the most out of IRAD and all of its magical features. But I am even more excited about the upcoming updates because I feel like these are the things that everyone that I've talked to in the last 12 months has been asking for or interested in, or even just, pie in the sky wishing for. And I feel like we're finally in a place where we get to actually bring those things to fruition. So super excited to get the ball rolling and start showing everybody what magic lies ahead.
Likewise, likewise. Very exciting times here. Quick agenda for today. One, we're going to talk about the why this matters to you. What was the catalyst for some of these changes and improvements we're making? Kind of just teeing up why we've been spending time in the background for so long, kind of building out and improving IRAD. We're also going to kind of go through the sections or those groupings of changes that we've made and those new improvements. We'll actually demo in a test environment here as well, so you can actually see what this looks like. We'll go through a couple of very rudimentary examples and use cases so you can get an idea of that. And moreover, the new UI, so some of the layouts we've done and what the reason for some of those changes is. We also have, again, that special access for you. So we'll cover who gets access to this, when, how that's all going to lay out. We'll cover that as we wrap up here today. And then we'll also have a Q&A section. So again, if there's any folks that have some questions, anything meaningful that you want to try to call out, Lauren, Allison, and Kate from our team are in the chat. They can certainly step in and help answer any of those questions, and we can cover that at the end as well. Awesome. All right, so let's dive in. So why does this matter? Why have we updated things? So IRAD exists for you, for the people on this call, for our tens of thousands of end users across the world. We only exist because you guys have been gracious enough to be a part of this journey with us. And we really, really value your feedback. And our feedback that we found over the years, and we collect this and take it very seriously, we've found in three kind of distinct patterns of where we think there's some gaps and some things we could improve for you. So the first one is really in the editing experience. Such as the nature of L&D and training as a whole, it takes time to edit and polish and make things look reasonable and to the level of your standard. And that time is something that means you can't get to other things, right? I've never heard an L&D team who feels like they have more resources, more time available that they can just spend on these things, right? We're always at a deficit there. So we've been really trying to think about how we can save you time, specifically in the editing function, which we know takes the most amount of your energy when it comes to content creation. The other piece is managing this content. We've heard a lot that the standard layout of IRAD, it's been a little clunky. There's been some spots where it's kind of hard to know the tutorial content you and your team making sense of categories and tagging and these sort of things gets a little challenging. So we really wanted to update that, make those things more obvious, more user-friendly for you. And then lastly, this bucket is really around measurement. And I know this is particularly a big one that's come up a lot. How do I justify that this content I'm making, this thing I'm spending time on, it's making an impact for me, for my learners, for my organization, my customers, whoever's consuming this? How do I justify my job? How do I justify the effort and the energy I'm putting into this? And is this making an impact? You kind of had to duct tape a bunch of stuff together in recent versions of IRAD to see that impact. And we really wanted to work on more dashboarding and visualizations of your data so that you could make that case and really obviously point to the impact that we know that these interactive tutorials have.
Um,
And actually, I know this is a big one that's come up for you, especially on the measurement side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just with the measurement side, I think one of the challenges, especially in L&D, in training, enablement, even on the customer success side, is you are creating all of this content to help people understand how to use the product, to get them, more into whatever the process and the workflow and the SOP is. But the measurement of that impact has been really difficult. I mean, there's been all sorts of studies about how to measure that impact, people creating success scores and health scores and all of that kind of thing. And one of the challenging parts that has come up often is folks are often curious, like, I spent all this time creating content. Is does anybody care? Are people using it? Are they getting halfway through it and falling asleep and disappearing? They want to know, like, if they have created that content, is it working? And if so, if it's not, then where are we losing people so that we can go in and make changes to it too? So I think that's a big part of it, along with the managing of it. Like, anybody who's started with IRAD creates a lot of IRAD content, creates a lot of tutorials. But then you get to a certain point where, like, oh, I actually need to figure out how to organize this, which has always been what I like to call a quality problem, but certainly one we need to solve. And then down to the editing being time consuming, right? It's people are thrilled at the initial tutorial that's created, but you've always got to go in and make changes. You've got to add that context. It's not just a how to, but it's the why do. And I think that is something we're really addressing with all of these new updates too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in those three buckets, just kind of reiterating here, and this is what we're going to cover today, creating content. So we're going to talk about how we thought about AI, layering and automating, taking steps off of your plates in that process of, basically the post capture. Once I extract that process, that know-how, that guide or workflow, how can AI step in over the millions of tutorials and millions of data points we've seen? How do we help make that so that we're saving you time and anticipating what we see as very common edits, masking, blurring, making adjustments post. Also on the managing side, again, you'll see here just streamlining, making things more obvious. We really focused on limiting the amount of clicks, making something dead simple so you knew exactly what you were looking at, using plainer language. It's been a big focus for us. And then you're also going to see the surfacing content side. Again, with the AI powered libraries that we're rolling out, we're trying to make sure that your learners get the right piece of content at the right time, when and where they need it. This is a big focus we're seeing in L&D and enablement. And we want to make sure we're empowering that as well. And actually, I know, again, that's one of the big ones you hear is just not only is it making an impact, but did the learners even get to it in the first place?
Right. How long is it taking for them to actually find it? For folks who are utilizing our library tool, it's incredibly powerful. They love the ability to be able to organize all of their content in one particular way or multiple ways if they're using multiple libraries. But you also, it's kind of a little bit like you don't know what to ask or how to ask it in order to get the answer that you're looking for. So having these AI powered search in our librarian tool is really going to help people get to the correct content without having necessarily go through multiple tutorials to find the actual answer to the question that they're asking.
Yeah, spot on. Cool. So let's actually dive in. I'm going to show you some examples. I think this will make for the best way to sort of experience this and continue our conversation here. So first off, I'm going to jump in and kind of talk through the workspace functionality. So moreover, just this simple clean function that we're going to be showing you, how we're saving you time, how we quick access and made a little bit more real estate and room on the screen for you. So I'm going to open up the new version of IRAD here. Make sure you can see me. Excellent. Okay, so now when you log into IRAD, you're looking at the new and improved UI. And what we really tried to focus on, one was from a menu standpoint. We found very commonly, people would ask about settings and functions and menus. Old version of IRAD, we had a bar at the top, a bar on the right, a bar on the left. We had a menu at the bottom. There was a lot of different areas because IRAD is a simple tool, but there's a lot of complexity and configuration that you can use. And so a big focus that we had in this new release is how do we consolidate this down to something much more user-friendly? So we've taken those bars that were sort of scattered across the screen, stack them all on this left-hand side. So now you have basically all that same functionality of what IRAD does, but in a more obvious layout for you. And so when you're used to looking at your tutorials, and you'd have different areas of shared with me and your categories and those sort of things, it's much more obvious what you're actually looking here on the screen. So even from the tutorial management side, you'll see here, we've made sure you have the visualization on the screen so you can see your tags. You can see which tutorials have categories. Previously, it was kind of hidden over here on the right, or I'm sorry, on the left, and you had to click on that, see if it was highlighted, and it was a little difficult to kind of understand what you were looking at on the screen. So we really focused on boxes and tabs to make sure you know what you're looking at. If you're looking at a category, trying to create a category, build a subcategory, in this case, you can see here, making those drop downs obvious and familiar for folks to know, okay, I know that I've got a category set up, or this tutorial doesn't have a category, or how can I make sense of this one? How can I filter and adjust in a more meaningful way? And that's been a big focus for us. And actually, I know this comes up a lot, right? How do I make sense of this great content I've made? It's only as good as the way I can organize it.
Yeah, absolutely. And finding it too, right? I mean, at a certain point, you've created so much content that you want to be able to easily and quickly find it. And if you've organized it using categories or using tags, it's great. You want to be able to like just look for tutorials that live under that particular category or just ones that live under that particular tag. So being able to visualize it like this versus the sort of list format that we had previously on the left-hand side, I think makes it much easier for people to kind of see the macro look of all of their categories, all of their tags, all of their tutorials, what still needs to be organized. It's kind of like a virtual file cabinet, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Focus a lot more on, again, what the actions are, right? So what are the most clicked and used functions? We put those in a quick menu here for you. The things you use less often are behind a little deeper menu. So just making it a little bit simpler to use, making sure that when you click on something, there's active tooltips, active callouts for what the thing does, just so everyone's nice and clear on those options. As we kind of progress through the UI, we've touched nearly every page of Iorad and taken this same functionality throughout, really thinking about consistency throughout, right? So when you're looking at libraries, you know you're in libraries, you see your different types and categories of libraries. You can pull these up, easily edit those. Again, libraries are those foldering systems of multiple tutorials that you want to string together in all the variety of ways you may want to do that. Creating a library, very straightforward. Editing those things in a more meaningful way as well. Making this really focus on being like a wizard where it would take you step by step in a very logical manner. Add a title, add a description. If you wanted to add buttons, you can add buttons. Selecting your tutorials in an obvious way, adding new tutorials. These sort of things, again, just more obvious layouts of where things could go so that when you're looking at your finished product, it looks like it would on the tutorial screen, to the library screen, to your themes, so on and so forth. Just really trying to stack that together for you. Same thing on the theme side. We really focused on tiling versus just large lists of text. We find it's a little easier to read, more obvious of what you're looking at to make more sense of that. Even down to our settings as well, team management, setting management, integrations, everything has a tab now and a logical way in which it's laid out so that you know how to make those adjustments, really focusing on that really, UX experience, making it nice and clear for you. Yeah.
It really is so much cleaner, brighter, easier to see. Everything just feels so much more organized visually. It's like I know where to find things and I can see them all in one sort of uh in one sort of view, sort of like, you're in the pilot seat and you can kind of see everything all at once in the dashboard.
Well said. Well said. Absolutely. Excellent. So this will be rolled out globally to all users once we go live in the next week or so, and we'll talk a little bit more detail about those dates coming up. But this will be throughout the entire experience for all Iorad users. Will see this new UI. Okay, now on to what arguably is more fun in terms of a update, which is this funky word called AI that everyone's obsessed with, right? Ourselves included. We've really tried to think about that next iteration. So not just management of your content, but what is the AI of Iorad? How can we really weave in the functionality and the beauty of this artificial intelligence? We were really focusing on it in two distinct places. So we talked about how editing is arguably the most time-consuming part of content creation, and certainly Iorad tutorials. And so we thought about what the job to be done is of an instructional designer, a training manager, someone in L&D, someone responsible for know-how in your organization. And we've really decided that a storyteller is kind of what your role is, right? You have to take data and process throughout an organization. You have to tell a story, coordinate assets, build something meaningful that some end audience has to consume and hopefully learn how a skill or a new process because of that. And the better the story, the deeper the impact to that end learner. And you're going to see here momentarily how we've weaved in AI to help you sort of extract those stories easier, to save you time in your ability and get you back to the super impactful work, taking out the grunt work of blurring and desensitizing materials and editing out clicks that you didn't mean to hit, and those sort of things that just waste time, right? These are perfect applications to outsource to AI. And then secondly, we're going to talk about the librarian component. This is again on the learner experience, how we're layering AI into that find and surfacing and using inferences to make sure that learners are getting the right tutorial at the right time. And actually, I know I'm going to show this in a moment here, but this has been arguably probably the most exciting thing for us internally is seeing how powerful this is going to be. So we're really interested in getting the feedback from our customers as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I feel like I have this conversation at least once a week, specifically when we're talking about the storyteller piece, where folks will be creating a tutorial and they're like, this is amazing. And what if it could do this? Or, I'll show the mask data feature, mask content feature, which is one of my favorite features of IRAD, because I remember the days of having to take screenshots and put them into Canva and have to blur it out and put it back in, the whole thing. And people love it. They love that they can do that. And then there's also the next step of,
Yeah,
what if it knows what it is? Can it do it for me? So it's really exciting stuff.
exactly. Yeah. So let's go through with the Ioradically agent of the storyteller to kick things off here, right? So same concept of capturing, whether you're using browser or desktop, still going to go through the same process of selecting capture. The difference here is you're going to see just the more optimized experience. So first off, it's going to allow you to capture which tab you'd like. If you don't have a tab open, you can open one from here now as well. But basically, you just select which tab you want to start this process capture on, just like you normally would. A couple of changes you'll see here, you'll notice on the right-hand panel, we have a little bit more of an optimized, more beautiful layout here. We're going to have this, again, beta feature at the moment, but the storyteller AI function. Think of this as that outsource agent sitting over your shoulder, looking at what you're doing, making inferences, making hypotheses and suggestions of what it thinks you're going to do post capture in the editing side, and effectively doing that for you. Always something that you have full control over on the back end to adjust, to change, to reiterate, to revert back if you needed. But how do we save you steps for the most redundant tasks of building and documenting content? So one of the things we've heard very often is when there's friction in using IRAD, it's typically when they want to flip on something like a screen capture tool, something video based, and they just want to kind of blurt and blab out their concept, and they just want it to capture that video and send it on its way. Taking that same idea, but how do we layer that into the power of IRAD, which is really that interactivity on the step-by-step nature? So if I were to enable this storyteller mode, think of us being that storyteller. Now you're going to see that the voiceover is now kicked on, and I'm going to talk through this tutorial. So in this particular tutorial, I'm going to go in Salesforce and teach you how to add a new contact. The first step is I'm going to click on this plus sign here. I'm going to click on my net new contact, my drop down, and I'm going to fill in my name. Let's, for argument's purposes, say that was the end of my step that I wanted to do. I'd simply hit the done button. The difference now is you're going to see that Iorad is actually going to be working in the background for you. So instead of taking you directly into that edit experience that you would normally have to manually do yourself and start editing, you'll see that the magic agent is working in the background. So it's letting you know that it was trying to extract, what does it think you want to blur out on the screen? What is the voiceover it probably wants you to do? It's taking that voiceover that I captured during that process, it's converting it into a transcript. It's converting it into AI voiceover. It's looking for the context, the overlay, all the things that one might want to do on the post-edit side, saving me time, right? So it's going to take, depending on the length of your tutorial, anywhere from about 10 to 60 seconds, depending on how many steps you have. But you'll see here, it just auto-generated. In the moment, that 1 minute that I captured, it built me this entire polished tutorial now. No longer am I editing anything if I don't want to. Here's what I just built. So if I hit start, contact.
Salesforce. This tutorial guides you through the process, adding a new.
All right, so I just kind of talked through that process. It extracted that I was doing a small overview in the beginning. It built me an info step slide. It said, here's what I think you're trying to do in that introduction. And it filled in all this information for me automatically. Right. So this huge time savings is inferring what it thinks I meant by this. Of course, you can edit and adjust this any way you want if you wanted to. But the beauty of this is it went ahead and did all this for me. Right. It figured out and adjusted that. It wrote in common and obvious language what these things were. This is the power of where we can layer in AI. It can actually save you that time of having to be this post-production, kind of grunt to go through all these clicks and all these obvious things you normally have to do.
It's so cool. I mean, I think the two big things that I love is just from that info step of adding that content and sort of kind of laying out the context, kind of prepping your end learner to say, here's what you're going to learn about in this tutorial, here's why it's important, and then being able to generate that additional text. So no longer is it going to be the basic call to action, which is important, right? Click here, type here, scroll here, all of that is super important. But adding that additional context at the start, and then you're just going in and either changing the tone, changing the language so it aligns with your brand or how you approach things. I mean, you created that in 1 minute and it generated key takeaways from a drop down of typing in somebody's first name. It's awesome. It's just awesome. Yeah. I get super excited about it.
Us as well, right? When we think about the power of Irad, we think about not just being this L&D tool that you get to use as in secret in the dark to make your job a little easier, but how do we really scale this across an organization? The way we do that is making it so obvious to extract that know-how and subject matter expertise. We could hand this to a non-subject matter expert to a non-L&D person, a non-instructional designer. They can capture a process and they can kind of do their ums and their ahs and they can zoom through their process that they're used to. And the AI is going to give you so much better of an output from a polish standpoint that you as the learning professional can go in and adjust and make sure it's exactly the way that you want. But it took away those big chunks, wasted energy that you're doing time and time again. And that's really been a huge focus for us, is helping you scale, right? So that maybe this tool can be really helping you do a lot more, touch all of those other departments that otherwise you have to shadow on calls or sit over the shoulder with. It's just helping you really scale all of that out. Excellent. And again, if you did want to manually do any of the editing, you can certainly go in and do your normal edit process. If it did miss something or the layout wasn't the way you wanted, or you need to recapture something, all the same rules apply. Pretty amazing. We're really excited about this. We're really excited to see how you guys are going to take this and scale out that content creation.
I think it's really going to speed up a lot of the content creation. I mean, the content creation is already pretty fast to begin with, or faster than the old school typing everything out, capturing all the screenshots, copy and pasting them. But I feel like this is it's going to make capturing and editing even more efficient. And then it's really more about like double checking that the language feels right, making sure that all of your highlight boxes are in all the right areas. The normal stuff that you're already doing with Irad to begin with, but it will accelerate that creation and that editing process so much faster.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then for the librarian piece, we'll lightly touch on this as well. We've also layered in AI into your Help Center libraries. So again, you're used to putting your tutorials, if you have, into these folders, these categories, these kind of one-stop shop where you have all your tutorial content stored in categories, subcategories, maybe by product, maybe by persona, by department, whatever works for your organization. Super simple to do. But now we've layered in what we call this librarian function to this from a search and surfaceability standpoint. So now I can ask this questions and help me find that right piece of content. So think about your learner base. You're now scaling the content you can put out there. You're making tutorials for everything you possibly can. Well, now it's only as impactful as those learners being able to surface it. So now they're going to be able to ask questions. How do I do X, Y, or Z in Figma? And it's going to know and look in an inference this information and surface the right tutorial, the right piece, the right content. We even have some ways you can upload your own resources if you have explainer materials or additional documentation that's more of like context and why behind different things. The AI is going to know what you're looking for and be able to help your learners surface that content. It's even going to do things like recommend popular topics. Maybe there's tutorials that people ask all the time, right? This is the power of AI. It's that speed to value, that you're able to see things. It's thinking for you. It's sort of anticipating your next step. This is really what we think is going to help the average knowledge worker to not only be able to create, obviously, but from your learner side, they're going to get to that tutorial. They're going to get to the value. They're going to be able to see and go through that process just like they normally would in the interactivity modes and the different modes you have set up for them, but all in this quick fire way, right? We're layering in additional intelligence to each step of that learner journey as well.
Absolutely. I mean, this part is huge because people are asking, they're going to ask a question of a how to, right? How do I use Figma? How do I create something in Figma? How do I do this? How do I do that? And that is a hard thing in the current version of the help centers because you kind of have to know what keywords to ask, and those keywords have to exist. With this, now you have the ability to ask it a question and it's going to give you the resources you actually need that are going to answer that question. So it's huge, not only if you're using help center libraries internally for anything like if you're using it as a resource aid, a job aid, but also if you're using them externally for your learners or for your customers, like they're going to be able to go in, ask it a question, and it'll be able to take your content and surface what it thinks is going to be the right answer.
Absolutely. Yeah, use cases are endless here, right? Embedding these libraries inside of an LMS, inside of a knowledge base, a wiki, using it as a quick link on guides for students, for any of your knowledge workers or customers. Really easy way to make sure that they're getting served with almost like that chatbot experience, but the end result that they get in terms of an answer is actually something that's useful, which is a tutorial, right? Sometimes you get an answer right away on ChatGPT. It might not really be the answer you want, or it might be 7 paragraphs of information that like you don't have the time or the energy to read through.
Right.
Here we're surfacing like an asset, the answer, something that's crisp, that's detailed, and we know aligns with how people like to learn.
Absolutely. I mean, we call it the librarian, but like it really is like going to your library and asking a question to your neighborhood friendly librarian, and they can point you to all the resources and they understand kind of that additional deeper context that you're looking for that you don't always get when you're asking like a chat GPT or something like that, a question like this. So, and it's powered by your own content, which is even better because it's really what you get to control what pops up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as we round up here in terms of new feature sets, we're also going to talk about the analytics and the insights, right? So we're going to show you the new dashboard functionality, how we've surfaced some of this data from a performance standpoint, so you can kind of look and monitor what these tutorials are doing, how it's being engaged with in a more visual way. And you're going to see there's some customizations we can do too from a reporting standpoint. So I'm going to go back over to Irad here, and you're going to notice in the dashboard function, we now have actually something visual. This has been one of the most requested features that we have, the ability to take the data and actually see something, visualize something in here. These are all custom widgets that you can adjust. You can see things in here like a recent activity for your creator base, things like tutorials created, learner engagement, time saved, efficiency gains, things like this. You can adjust and create new dashboards as well. I'll show you another one here for top stats. So if you wanted to look at distribution of your content, like, hey, how many people are consuming this in different modes? What are my top tutorials? Who are my top creators? We have these questions that leadership is going, hey guys, how's it going over there with your content? We've never really had a great way to tell that story, not just story that the end learners need, but story for management, story for why this works, story for the impact it's making. Data is a difficult thing. And when you can visualize it in these ways, you can point to those things and surface them. You can tell a tighter story, which ultimately is what people will help you basically judge your value on, right? Which is at the end of the day, what we're trying to do here.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a visual person, so being able to see this is huge, right? Being able to log in, go into the dashboard, see a chart, and be able to see the progress, the updates, the changes, all of that is big. I hear from a lot of our customers too that they'll often ask if they want to know what are my top tutorials, like which tutorials are people going to the most? Because if they're going to a certain tutorial the most, then it's most likely that that's the area where there might need to be more customer education or more knowledge sessions built around that. So being able to see it in that like pilot mode, sitting there in front of your whole screen and being able to look at everything all at once at any point in time is it's going to be a game changer. It's going to make finding that information so much faster.
Amazing. Yeah. Really excited about this, especially the horizontal nature of IRAD. You guys are in every industry across the world and every different type of use case imaginable. There's a lot that we can't know as your vendor, but we want to help empower you to make those decisions and cater and configure. And that's really, we try to make everything as drag and drop as we could to really help with that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Okay. Well, those were our 3 categories, typing into basically how we can help empower that creator side from an AI standpoint, the librarian to help you surface content for your learners as effective as possible, the new UI layouts, making things more obvious and intentional for you as a user. And then, as we touched on, analytics and impact, thinking about performance, thinking about how we can scale these sort of things out. So we'll get to a couple questions here in a moment, but wanted to make sure everyone was clear on sort of what is going on in terms of access. Everything we've released, again, the UI will be globally released to all IRAD users in the coming week. This should be live by July 4th, which is next Friday. You should see the new UI update when you log in for that. So that will be across the board.
Yeah, for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. The features you're seeing here in terms of AI, capture, librarian, storyteller, analytics, these things are going to be more beta features because we're rolling those out. There's all new functionality. As a thanks for all of you for kind of being these early adopters, we're going to make sure all of you have access to these features in your account. So be looking out for an email from us in the next week or so. This should all be live for you guys. We're hoping by that following week, which I believe is the 11th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
You should get an email from our team giving you access to this. We're also want to make sure that everybody knows, again, beta functions. We really want to get your feedback. We want you testing these things. We want you to help us improve and tell the story that we think is best for you guys, but it's only going to matter when, you put fingers on keyboards and help give us that feedback. So that's going to be really important.
Absolutely. The more feedback, the better. Send it our way. Screen recording, screenshots, all of it is super helpful. It helps us make sure that we're improving it in the way that makes sense for you, and that is going to be helpful to the work that you're doing. So don't want to make changes unless people feel really, motivated and encouraged and are like, if we could just do this one thing, it would make it that much better.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, email coming for those things. Same thing with any other team members or people from your network, as I mentioned. There'll be a banner that'll stay up until the end of next week. They can opt in. They will get the recording. They'll also get the same treatment as sort of beta access in this special group for joining us and being willing to give us feedback early on. Lastly, I was just going to mention, we are trying to do more of these webinars. We've been hearing from you that there's more training, more insights, more best practices that we're looking for. So Ashley and the team are really focused on figuring out how we can do this one-to-many for you guys. So we highly recommend reaching out to us. We'll have a couple of channels to do this for, but we really want to get topics down. What are the things that you really want to see? What are the deep dives we can do? We were very high level today, just kind of giving you the basics and kind of structure and why. We want to get into the how-tos, the best practices, any of those templates we can help provide for you. But we'd love to hear from you what you think would be useful in terms of those topics.
Yes, please let us know. Let us know what you'd love to learn more about. It can be really broad. It can be even something very, very specific. The more that we know that, what you're looking to understand, the better that we can tailor these webinars and make sure that they're actually meaningful, because your time is valuable. It's precious. You have a limited amount of it. We want to make sure that we're making the most of your time and making sure that we're not just talking about stuff that we think is important, but the stuff that's actually important and going to help impact the work that you're doing.
Sure thing. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate the time. Hopefully that got you a little excited, got you a little bit of juices flowing on what's possible here. Love to kick it over to some Q&A. Lauren, Allison, Kate, any specific questions surfaced from the chat that'd be useful to talk about broadly here?
Yes, we got a few questions on whether the storyteller will be available on either the desktop or the browser app.
Yes, so it will be available on both, I believe, the desktop as well. I'm not entirely sure if that's coming up in this first version. I can double check on that for you, but I know it will be available on the browser-based, the Storyteller browser extension. That's the first rollout we're doing for that release next week.
Awesome.
Good question.
Excellent.
Another one that we had was if the storyteller AI mode is making edits or blurring something out, can you then go back and adjust those features?
Yes, so you should be able to go back and do your editing post polish, right? So if the AIs went through and made those edits for you, added a voiceover, made some adjustments, you can go back and you can add additional blurs, move the boxes around. It's not set in stone. It's just something that's doing what we consider like the first pass for you to save time, which you can always go back and do that post edit as well.
Another question we have is, will your AI be able to add tags or categorize the tutorials?
Not in this first version. That's a great call out. Certainly something we can think through and we'll surface to the product team. I think in this first version, we were really thinking about creator side and edit. Tutorial management, that's a great call out. We'd love to get some feedback on that, like what that would look like. What would be ideal? Would it be by product or process? What would be the mechanism we would use to figure out what those categories are, right? Because that would be different for every user, depending on how they like to set it up. So we want to think through what would be useful there. But yeah, that's a great call out.
Another question we have is storyteller available for school accounts or school plans?
So in the first version here, for all the folks who are kind enough to join us here and in this next week or two, yes, you'll have access on a beta version to try this out. Full disclosure, likely, and again, we'll confirm some of these in terms of plans. This will likely be reserved for those on IRAD for schools plans. So those in the teacher 10, 20, 30, 40 packs, those that are part of, who bought it through your school, those are where we plan to roll this out more globally on the plan level. Individual teachers long-term likely won't have it just on that one plan. You'd have to be a part of a school, but in this beta test, as a individual teacher, you would have access in the short term here.
Awesome. Another one is, does AI storytelling also work in other languages?
Have to double check on that. So to date, I believe we just have this, yes, just in English in this first pass for version 1. Again, another call out. Great suggestion. That's something we can definitely think through in further releases, but English in this first version.
Will the beta access be available even for free version users?
If you're in this first grouping, yes. So if you've joined and subscribed and registered to this webinar or anything in this next week and a half here while we have this beta open, yes, even free version users will still have access to this beta.
Awesome. And will you be able to update your old tutorials with this AI feature?
That's another great question. I'm not entirely sure. I think we certainly will have the ability to recreate additional steps. I have to get back to you on exactly how that's going to work for existing tutorials, if you can still re-record and add those steps.
Yeah, that's one we can definitely follow up with folks on and let them know exactly what that looks like, what that process is, at least for V1.
Okay. Looks like V1 here, it's new tutorials only. We're just hearing from our product team. But yeah, again, another great suggestion for something we can think through and further. Love to know what the use case would be there. Like if you have already edited that tutorial, like what you're trying to accomplish with that. That's another great piece of feedback. We'd love to better understand your use case. But version 1 would be just new tutorials.
Another question we have here is, could an end user use this librarian feature, or is it just for the creators?
No, it would be for end learners too. Yeah, so that's really the main use of it, is for those who are going to that library to pick up a tutorial to learn something. They're interacting with the chat. That was designed for the end learner, not really the creator in this case.
I know we have a lot more questions, but I also want to be mindful that we've kept people a little bit longer than our initial half hour, which is awesome because everybody's super excited. Lots of questions. We will definitely be following up with everybody. We'll make sure that we answer all your questions, give you all of the details, and keep you posted as to whether or not things are coming in V2. But please keep the questions coming. Please let us know your thoughts. This is how we are able to iterate and make changes to it for version 2, 3, whatever's coming down the pipe. And thank you all for spending 45-ish minutes of your day with Sean and I. We are so appreciative of all of these questions, all the engagement, all the excitement, all of the love that is coming our way. We're super excited. We hope you're excited too.
Yeah, this means the world to us, guys. Thank you for carving out some time to be here. Really appreciate this. Yeah, again, all resources will be there. We'll make sure to get back to everyone's questions as well that we couldn't pull up here live. Thanks again for the time. And yeah, more exciting stuff to come.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, guys.